Sirius XM hosts David Frick and Mark Goodman.
Welcome back to the Whiskey. We are live, and joining us, the first and, to my knowledge, only man who has made a trombone rock.
That's what I'm told.
Jimi Pankow
I'm
is
still
here with
trying
us,
to
man.
make it look cool, but it's not easy.
Oh, but it's
question-
like air guitar, man. You just blow through that thing and it just comes out. It's almost like its own distortion pedal.
Yeah, somehow I walked home with this sewer pipe when I was 10 years old, and I'm still trying to figure the darn thing out,
Congratulations on 50 years.
Yeah.
It
yeah,
seems
50.
kind of... So
50 years.
You started when you were 12.
Gosh, yes. Yes. Yeah. It's
Kind of mind-boggling.
It's been an adventure beyond belief. Our original manager and mentor for many, many years.
Jim Guercio?
Guercio was one of several, but Howard Kaufman, who was kind of our godfather, he mentored us for years, in the managerial sense. He said, if you guys ever write the real story, you'll all be in prison. So, that kind of tells you what a ride it's been. And there were times when you could get away with things because technology did not avail Big Brother of snooping. So we did things that
are not on Instagram.
People couldn't even dream about, and somehow we survived. But it's really all about the music, and here we are, where it all started.
Let me ask you something. The first bunch of records from the band were double albums, and they were really full of, as I'm preaching to the choir here, massive changes, really intricate, tight. Was the fact that they were double albums, one, is it because there was just so much music that you needed two albums? Was it a product of the band being so prolific that you had so much? And how were those songs built initially? Out of jamming? You've always felt like a jam band.
Well, back in the day when we first started recording, there was 8 tracks. That's it.
Oh, I'm going to tell you about my 8-track in my car.
Yeah.
The Chicago 8-track for Chicago Transit would break in the middle of the song. It was the worst.
I know. It was like putting a shoebox into your dashboard. Those things were. But we only had 8 tracks in the studio, so we had to track live. So yes, a lot of this music was a result of just jamming together and the horns and the rhythm section. Just experimenting. The house we lived in here in Hollywood was a 24/7 rock and roll jamatorium. I mean, we had the police visiting us several times a day and night, every week, and the neighbors were going nuts because we were literally eating and sleeping this music, and it resulted as just a lifestyle more than anything. When anybody had an idea, we were all there. The gear was all set up in the living room.
Jeez.
We just go, hey, man, let's try this.
How much of that first album was ready by the time you first played at the Whiskey? You actually were here in, I think it was September of 68.
68, yeah.
You opened for Albert King.
Yes, we did. And it was that gig that we were up in the dressing room getting ready to come back on stage that Jimi Hendrix appeared in the doorway. And, of course, it was momentous.
Wow.
He walked into the room and he said, you guys have a horn section that sounds like one set of lungs and a guitar player that's better than me. You want to go on the road? And we opened his shows for a whole touring season without a record. And that was huge exposure and also a big validation. I guess if we were good enough for Jimmy, we were good enough for a record label, which also happened here. Record labels began to take note, and they bid. They had bidding wars here at the Whiskey, and so we'd be up there on stage wondering what the next move would be. But we were truly just focused on that music, and the double albums were released that way because we didn't think of writing a single. We didn't think of a particular length of a
Clearly.
song. We threw down with what we felt, whether it was 7 minutes of music, 10 minutes of music, 3 minutes, 15 minutes. And we needed double records, double discs to capture the full spectrum of this time and place. And that was the case all the way up until the Carnegie Hall album. And then, of course, If You Leave Me Now became a #1 global hit, and then radio decided that that was Chicago's niche on radio. So we had to become more formula in terms of commerciality.
But that experimentation continued on the later records.
Yeah. That's what people knew us as on radio, and people that came to shows went, "Holy cow, those guys have a whole other ball game going on.
Right.
Those guys kick ass,
right.
you know." And we do to this day. The up-tempo stuff was always a battle trying to get it on the air. And when they came to the show and discovered that, we weren't just a ballad band, they were impressed and excited about it. And we are still reinventing ourselves. Evolution happens daily. Inspiration is momentary. It's all the time. Now we have the technology to put this stuff down. We have a mini rig on the road. We can make records in the dressing room, on the bus, in the hotel. And ideas are rendered spontaneously. So this new material is just continuing, and we're far from over.
It's a pretty interesting thing when you talk about a band like yours that has been around for this long. There's a problem that happens with the audience, and I want to know how you guys react to it, because you're talking now about, look, your state of mind in terms of creating is the same today as it was 50 years ago. You want to make music, you want to write, but people who come to the shows,
they want to hear the stuff
hear the hits
that represents a big moment in their lives.
Yeah.
And that's what, as writers who created this stuff, it's the ultimate compliment for a songwriter.
But it's also the ultimate challenge, because then you have to find a way to build on that, to take them
to present
to another place.
The next step, the next level. Well, you're sitting at a piano and you're having a very personal moment, and all of a sudden it becomes a mantra for millions. And it's scary. It's a responsibility that you now have your right, David. And you need to keep that groove going to let the fans know that they're valuable. Without them, what does it matter? And so it's really amazing now to look back at this and know that this music that was created over the years has literally become a soundtrack to people of all ages all over the world. And you get up on that stage, you look out in the audience, and you see people remembering where they were, what that song meant to them.
So clearly. It's so true, and that's the great thing about music.
Yeah, and in our case, which is another phenomenon, it's not demographic. There's 15-year-olds that have a chord struck with this stuff, just like 70-year-olds, and they all are getting it. They're experiencing it on their own level. So there's something about this music that transcends generations, and that we don't know.
Well,
why.
I talk to jazz musicians who still go back to those records because of the power of the horn charts and the way there were so many changes within them, melodically and harmonically, that there was a lot of depth to those arrangements that was almost beyond the song. The song was the opening into something else.
Yeah, perhaps it's such a mixture of genres and styles that there's something there that appeals to everyone.
Jimmy, we're going to have to let you go in a second, but...
Don't let me go!
No! But can you kind of characterize the mood in the band tonight to come back? Are you all sort of having these weird flashbacks as you get to step on this stage that you played 40 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
It's like opening night all over
again.
Yeah,
I spent the first half hour or so just snooping around, and seeing if I could sense the ghosts that are probably here as we speak. They're probably all stoned, and they're probably all, waiting for a mosh pit like they did back in the day.
They're still waiting for the encore.
Yeah, they're waiting
like
for
68.
the encore. Yeah.
We're going to do one. We're going to go to Color My World here. Do you want to set that up since you are intimate with that song?
Well, Color My World is a little movement, actually, from a long piece that I wrote called The Ballet for Roland Buchanan from the second album. And it was never intended to be released on its own, but the record label did, and it became a standard, if you will. And, all these years later, people still tell me, we got married to this song, or we got engaged to this song, or we danced at our prom to this song. So it's the ultimate compliment to a songwriter and to the music of Chicago. And again, We love you fans. Without you, it doesn't mean a thing. So enjoy yourselves.
Jimi Pankow from Chicago. We are under an hour away from the band hitting the
Ooh,
stage.
I'm nervous.
Jimmy, thanks so much
Thank
for
you
taking
very
some
much,
time
man.
with us tonight, man.
You're so welcome.
And
It's a pleasure.
congratulations
David,
on
Mark.
the Big 50.
Chicago
Thank
Live
you.
from the Whiskey on Classic Vinyl. This is Color My